to the ring right now, ladies and gentlemen, out of Mound, Minnesota, at 218 pounds, he is the great Greg Gagne.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Dominic DeAngelo of OneTrueSportTV.com and FourHorsemenNetwork.com. And it's a Friday, and it's a special kind of Friday because it's at 4 p.m. And we got the boss himself. It is Mr. Magnum TA. Magnum, good to see you. What a busy week you probably had, huh?
Busy week. It's kind of interesting to catch up on Fridays since it's kind of the end of the whirlwind rather than earlier in the week. But like to let everybody know that Greg has had his surgery, which by all accounts was successful, but he's got a long road to recovery ahead, and we're just sending him our prayers and good thoughts, and wanting to get him back on here with us, sharing some of those pearls of wisdom as only he can do.
Absolutely. I want to hear some. We should play some Bob Seger, but we get a copyright flag. But
yeah, he won't be Bob Seger in it for a minute.
Not for a little bit. Yeah, not for a little bit. But yeah, he had his back surgery this past Monday. Laura gave us some good news that it went well. And like Magnum said, a long road to recovery. So if you want to give him some support and show him some love, go to his Instagram at gagne.greg and send him some good feedback there. I'm sure he would appreciate all that stuff. So,
yep.
But yeah, best wishes and prayers to Greg. Hopefully we'll get him back here soon into the mix. Let's give some shout outs to some folks in the chat. Jen Vargo. Hey, Jen, good to see you in here. Eddie Prather's in the house. Dom and Magnum, he says, what's up, CB? Good to see you too. We also have Logan in the chat. We'll be talking about some of the figures coming up here. Charlie chimes in. Good afternoon, Dom and Magnum. I hope you gentlemen are doing fantastic. A pleasure to be here. Good to have you here, Charlie. And he said, yes, prayers and a quick recovery for Greg. Absolutely. And yeah, thank you too. Well, for Jen for the well wishes here. Cool. Yes, Eddie's already asked the question, but guys, if you want to ask a question, feel free to. If you want to help support the show, Super Chat always helps, and your question will definitely get answered. But yes, if you're watching on whatever channel it is, whether it's OneTrueSportTV.com or FourHorsemenNetwork.com, be sure to like, share, subscribe, and get the word out about the show and everything like that. So we've got some interesting topics to cover today, I think. I wanted to start with this one, Magnum. We talked a little off air about it, but TNA, they obviously, Tessa Blanchard's a big part of that company, and somebody else that was a big part of that company was Gail Kim. She's no longer there. They let her go, and she, I believe she just released an announcement expressing her thoughts on the matter. But I wanted to get your thoughts. Gail has been an imperative part of TNA for years on end. Even during COVID, I interviewed her and all that stuff. And like, you think about the Knockouts division, that was the premier women's division in all pro wrestling. And like, I don't think you could have that without somebody like Gail Kim there. But I wanted your thoughts about your interaction with her, what you think of Gail, and the aftermath of all this.
Well, to me, having Gail represent TNA was such a value add to that organization. I don't care whether she was helping produce or just there for morale or having coffee with the crew. Having a legend of her caliber and the innovator that she was throughout her career, it was just, it was a great big plus to have her there, representing the company. So yeah, I'm very, really a little dismayed to see her gone. I mean, the only other woman that comes to mind is who's had that kind of impact on the industry to me is Medusa, and friends with both of them, I'm curious, what's going on in the thinking, in the group. I mean, I'm betting on them. I want them to do well, and I want to see that brand, get back into top contention, because they have inevitably over the years, though not having the eyes on that that some would like, have produced some really good product. And bell time to bell time, has been good. And the interjection of the folks that have come over from the WWE and the association with the network, you think that would be just a bridge to continue to grow. Maybe try to get on a better network to have more visibility with fan base and all those things. And in doing so, again, having somebody like Gail, who's still, looks like $1 million, looks like she could still go in there in the ring and go if she wanted to, as part of your company, just doesn't make sense to me. So, maybe more will get enlightened, but I'm just really scratching my head about it, kind of like the rest of the world.
It's it's a very much a head scratcher, considering, her tenure there, what she clearly contributed to that company and elevating that women's division. And then on top of it too, it's her legacy is just something like she is a TNA figurehead, big time. Like I think I would put her on the Mount Rushmore of TNA, to be honest. Like I really would, because you think of what the Knockouts division was, and she epitomized that. People are too speculating that this could be indications of maybe like TNA making way for a sale to WWE or TKO picking up the company. I don't know if that's in the cards for it or anything like that, but I don't know. If that was the case, I mean, I would keep Gail Kim around for that, because who else is not more knowledgeable than her, I would say.
I'm going to flip the script on that.
Okay.
So as far as there's no value add for the WWE to purchase anything. Yeah, I mean, they are the marquee brand. They've got the greatest talent on the planet working for them. They got the best developmental system it could possibly be going. And TNA is a nice place to slide some of their other people in and out in an interesting way to kind of blur the lines and create some new storylines. But there would be a whole lot of logic into why that they would want to no bigger than they are. If they would have to have some great big footprint that would expand something of the WWE's universe, in my opinion, to make that a palatable idea. And I mean, if Vince was still in the game and knowing he was not a Gail Kim fan, then I would buy into some maybe the conspiracy theories about all that. But the WWE is on a level all their own today, and there's nobody even in a close second. So the way they're playing the hand right now, to me, is where it would make most sense for them. I don't see them having to come off the hip with money for something like that.
Well, I think that's a great point too. Like if WWE bought TNA outright, it kind of diffuses the allure of, hey, this crossover brand is coming in here. Now that you own it, it doesn't pack as much as a punch, I think, of like, oh, they're going outside of their realm here, which is what's kind of been neat about this whole WWE willing to work with so many different independent promotions and the TNA and this. So it's just like, I don't know. It does seem like it would be the only thing that I would want to, that I would think that would be a big incentive for them, is that library that TNA possesses, with all the current talent that they have from TNA on their current roster and stuff like that. So maybe that kind of acquisition would make sense, but I don't know.
You don't have to acquire the company to do that. You can make a deal and because I'm sure they've got things planned for the Netflix brand that way beyond anything us mere mortals or can fathom, and they'd be silly if they didn't. I mean, that's just such a great platform. I mean, I've become so engulfed in these platforms and seeing programming that you don't see on regular television, like Reacher, for instance.
Right.
You know, and some of these series and things. So, you know, Netflix is huge future, you know, bonanza and all the things that they can create and do and whatnot. But you know, again, as good as the library is, and there's some great stuff on there. It's no greater than the WCW library or the Jim Crockett library or the Florida Championship Wrestling library. I mean, it's another
EWA.
library.
Mm-hmm.
You know, make it available. But you know, most people, you know, sitting down with their laptop, googling and going through, you know, going through their computer can watch nicks and pieces of whatever they want to go do. And though nostalgia is big, you know, we still want fresh things. I think you know they struggle more, you know, with fresh ideas today than trying to, you know, rehash, you know, things from the past. So
it's true too. And the other thing too is like the DVD era is kind of over. Like I was big into getting certain wrestling DVDs. Oh, I need to get Scott Hall's DVD. I need to get the Dusty Rhodes DVD collection. And I still kind of like having the physical hard copies of things, but in the grand scheme of it all, people are not really seeking that out as much as they used to. So it might limit the intrigue of something, making it that bigger of a property too. I think that's a fair argument.
well, we're all spoiled. I mean, there was a time when that's the only way you could relive those memories.
Yeah.
And this thing here has changed the entire world.
Yes.
There's, you know, and we have bigger versions of it. We have tablets and we have little things we can plug into our smart televisions to enable us to surf the net and see it on the big screen. And it's a different era. And, you know, those things that were once intriguing because they were unobtainium almost. Now we're like, you know, you imagine it, you can find it, you can see it. You can say, well, you know, that was good, but maybe it wasn't quite as majestic as I remember it.
It could happen.
You know, well, no, and to that point, you know, so it really is. You know, Mick Foley told me one time that if you have one pinnacle something in your career that people can like remember over time and keep going back and revisiting, to have one of those is like, you know, a big deal because there's people that have had long 10, 20-year careers and never had, you know, some big thing that just kind of stood out. And you know, and even those big things, even Mick coming off the top of the cage or me trying to gouge Tully's eye out with the stick in the I Quit match, or you know, all those things that are still kind of those milestone things. They're still just a click of your phone, relive it. Okay, did that, you know, move on to the next thing, and you can do it, you know, just like that.
Exactly, just like that too. No, it's a great point though that Mick makes. It's just like, yeah, people, wrestlers in their careers, you hope for like a certain thing that your memory you have people keep memory for you. You know, they commemorate you for, and it's just like to get that. It seems like, yeah, it has to somewhat happen organically, obviously. And, you know, you need a promotion machine behind you in certain ways, too, to also make it happen in a lot of ways. But, you know, those moments are really what can make some stars, too, at the same time, you know?
100%.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Guys, if you have some questions, I'm already starring a few of them. We got some good ones cooking already from people, and I'm making sure to star them for the end of the show or once it fits in here. So if you guys got some questions, feel free to enter them. Use the super chat, help us out, like I said. Get to the front of the line and yeah, help support the show. What else was I gonna? Oh yeah, just the aspect too of you think about it. Okay, Gail Kim is gone, and then we talked about him off air too. Scott D'Amore is gone. Two people that are really tied to TNA, really tied to that brand, and we're really passionate about that brand. So it is like a head scratcher. Man, what is going on? Like, why do they decide to make these kind of pivots and make this change when it seems like the course that they were on seemed like the right path? And, you know, you kind of hope for the best, but it is like, you know, Scott D'Amore has moved on to do his Maple Leaf Wrestling again, revitalize that. So that's pretty neat to see. But, you know, you just want to see those creative minds be put in the right positions in the mainstream aspect of pro wrestling too at the same time. So.
Yep.
Makes it tough. All right. Let's take a couple questions here real quick. We'll start with this is a good one from Matt Karcher, who's been very proactive. He says, Magnum, who is the biggest guy you've ever wrestled? I know you fought Kamala and I think Bundy. Any other super heavyweights that you battled?
I think Bundy was probably the heaviest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, Kamala was probably 365, 375 when I wrestled him. Bundy was different bills. I mean, Kamala was very agile to be that big and not look like, athletic or whatever. I mean, you saw him, he could jump up and touch his feet with his hands and I mean, he was very explosive. And Bundy was built like a refrigerator. and I mean, had a great heel look. When he shaved those eyebrows off and did that. I mean, did you ever see him when he was Chris Canyon when he started?
No. Well, he had a head of hair. I remember seeing the head of hair.
The eyebrow, like a whole different guy. But
yeah, right.
Man, when he cut all that off and came out there with that Mr. Clean look and just, I mean, he looked like something out of a Spider-Man villain comic book or something.
Right, Kingpin.
Yeah, Kingpin, exactly. And but he probably had those between those two. They'd have to be the biggest.
How was your interaction with Bundy and stuff like that? I heard he's kind of like an odd cat to kind of get along with a lot of ways, and unfortunately, he died pretty lonely. I think he had some cats that he had and stuff like that. But did you overall get along with him?
I saw him when I first went to Mid-South, and of course, I mean, I had a 1.5-year run there, and that was my first, push to work main event. And he was trying to find his way, kind of too. I mean, I listened to that going, poor Ernie Ladd just browbeat the soup out of him about, trying to give him more intensity and this, that, and the other, because Ernie was a big man and he knew, things that big men needed to do to get over. And so, I was kind of with him when he was, again, finding that character, refining what that would be. But it was always nice to me. Very, I mean, I really don't remember, a handful of people that I ever had any problems with, working with in the ring. I think wrestling too is my only little weird caveat story, and I loved him too. He just I was just with him in the weirdest transition of his entire career, and he was having trouble finding his way.
Yeah, right. Well, no, I remember. So my first introduction to King Kong Bundy was like in 1995 when he returned to like WWE, and so he was like, we had this VHS where he's fighting Razor Ramon and stuff like that. So he's not as in his prime as it would be like back then. But then I got to see once the WWE Network showed up, I binged like all of World Class that they had, and there's this awesome promo of him maybe he's with Gary Hart or something like that, but he's like eating a drumstick on a dock and cutting like a heel promo as he's doing it. I'm like, this is like some of the greatest stuff I've ever seen for pro wrestling. I was like, I'm invested. You got me, Bundy. You got me.
Yeah, no, he was special.
Yeah,
and big guys like that can move and I mean, the one man gang, another guy.
Yes.
That was an incredible performer and absolutely huge. Yeah. So.
And you never squared off against Brody, right? You were just didn't you?
No, I think I was his puppy. He liked me.
Yeah.
He taken me under his wing, and I was never on the receipt of one of his blows. I used to laugh. I couldn't wrap my head around why everybody was so terrified. Because to me, he was just my bud.
Yeah.
I did not think about him or Stan either one like that.
Right. Good stuff. All right, we'll take some more questions here. You guys are dropping some really good questions here. I'm having a hard time choosing, to be honest. We'll go with Stamps here next. You've been involved in both the wrestling world and the business world. If you could go back in time, would you have done anything differently in your wrestling career to prepare for your life after wrestling?
That's a great, I'm, looking back in hindsight,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of, it's a two-edged question because, had I been able to have a long, lengthy career, a 10 or 15 or 20-year run, you know, putting money into things that could have invested over time would have been much more a focus for me.
Sure.
I was on the cusp of the money going linear. So in 1986, I was probably in that top 3% income earners in wrestling, but this was before pay per view,
Mm-hmm.
and our money was all derived, by how many people came in the building, and we split that up from the main events and made really great money. But I knew that the bigger thing was coming. But when pay per view came, it literally took a position that was $250,000 a year to a $2 million a year deal, and being able to navigate life and take and put away you know significant chunks of money to vest and grow over time would have been something very feasible then. But at the time, we were all living and spending so much going to and from and maintaining a look and a way that we were living a lifestyle. We were living it, but we were just spending everything basically that we had to
Yeah.
do it. But it was a different time. I mean, money was different. It was probably worth 3 or 4 times more than it is today. So yeah, I mean, obviously, financial planning was not anything that was ever offered up or prioritized with any of the promoters. And I don't know what WWE does today, but I have a feeling they make more things available to put people that would receive it to enable them to plan for a future. I've heard that they help people with their education if they want to better themselves and all kinds of different things. So I was right in the midst of seeing the business turn a corner and seeing where it went absolutely linear in terms of income earning potential. Because I knew that earning $1.5 million, $2 million a year would not be a drop in the bucket, the way things were going. And I was right. I literally laid in a hospital bed for 5 months and watched the whole business shift from where we were just having Starcades in 1986 and doing a simulcast to big time pay per views, and it changed the world.
Yeah. Wow. That's very true too. What a transitional moment too that was at the time, and yeah, very fascinating. It's a man, and I was just talking to somebody, a coworker, how important it is. Like you think about the school systems today, and you never, even when I was in school, they didn't teach you, hey, some basic financing kind of tips about what you got to do to prepare for life after the fact. Where all that stuff should really be instilled into people of budgeting or doing just different things and making sure that you're covering your bases to start things off and to create yourself a little foundation once you get out in the real world. Because I mean, as we all know, high school is very different from where you're at in the real world. Same with college. So it's very much stuff to think about, and pro wrestling too. Stamps had a follow up with that too. He actually added, "What skills do you think are most transferable from wrestling to other professions?"
Communications,
Oh, great.
100%. Being able to address people, convey a thought, direct a message, leadership values, discipline, hard work ethic, things that have to be instilled in you by the work that you've done. And the guys, particularly ones that came from amateur athletics, football, wrestling, where they disciplined and focused, their entire lives prior to getting in wrestling, had building blocks. And, you take a guy like Nikita. Nikita, was a all-in football player with tunnel vision to go into the NFL, and suffered an injury that it caused him to not be able to be as 100% with his speed and his legs as he was before that injury, and he pivoted and went into wrestling. But again, all that hard work and things that he did to prepare to be the best he could be in that transitioned into him being successful in wrestling, has enabled him to be focused and purpose driven in everything he's done in his later life, ministry, business, everything that he's done. And for me, I had a multifaceted education because I worked for Turner Broadcasting for a couple of years in the Ivory Tower down there in Peachtree and DeKalb, and learned about the corporate end of big business, and the good, the bad, the ugly, the swimming with the sharks, the things that you got to be able to do to navigate all those things. So yeah, wrestling, if you were prepared and had become a student of the wrestling world and were striving to be the best that you could be every day, and had that kind of commitment and focus, put that same commitment and focus into other things, and you have a really good opportunity to be successful.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Communication is so key. And that's with any kind of job or life in general. It's just like how you present yourself and how you make a connection with somebody can lead to something else, and just create more opportunities for both parties involved. And so, and what a valuable thing that is. Like, just even being, dude, you're wrestling in your underwear, and then you're got to get a microphone put in front of you, and you got to say something. I mean, that's like a nightmare and a half that you could have, and you're living it. And then so to be baptism by fire like that is like, okay, that's going to help me in different aspects of life.
Yeah. And it's so funny because I wasn't one of those like kids in school that, was interested in theater or public speaking or any of those things. I was all in amateur wrestling. But when I got into the professional wrestling world and found this character and what this thing, it wasn't a stretch then to get in front of a camera and have a mic and have that little red light, and you're talking to hundreds of thousands of people at one time, and I never really thought about that, and consequently, after that life, when somebody puts a microphone in front of your face, or you're going to address a room with 10 people in it or 2,000 people in it, it really doesn't register to you that that's anything unusual or that's overwhelming or should be somewhat intimidating. I remember doing a Q&A one time at the event in Charlotte sometime the last 10 years, and this fellow came up to me afterwards, and he was an attorney. He said, "You're so comfortable." And I said, well, I said, it's not because I studied, and it's not because, of any great thing. I said, it's just what I've always done. And I don't know, I can't imagine it being any other way. So, I guess it's a gift that you acquire from going on that journey.
Yeah, and speaking too of Nikita, Jen Vargo asked the question too. I thought you and Nikita had an awesome rivalry in the 1980s. Are you two still in touch today? Now, I do know I happened to see both Magnum and Nikita in Pittsburgh last year. It was, and I think it was last year. It was right. No, maybe it was over a year ago, because that's when we started collaborating with the podcast. But,
yeah, we actually just did a men's ministry thing together with Lodi at his gym here in Matthews, North Carolina. I guess it's been 2-3 weeks ago now. Time just goes too goofy with me, but anyway, I was just with Nikita, and we see each other. We can see each other one time and not see each other for 6 months or a year, and it's the same when we talk on the phone. probably every 6 weeks or so, and exchange text, and he's busy, and I think, gosh, he's got so many grandkids. I can't remember what he told me, but it is some absolutely insane amount of grandkids. I mean, he had 4 daughters.
Wow.
And they have all been very, very blessed, and his quiver is full.
Wow. Yeah, holy smokes. He's got his hands full, man. Holy smokes. Keita's very nice guy, though. Yeah. Good question there, Jen. And thank you, too, for Stance for that question as well. Here's an interesting one. I wanted to see. One almost sounded like the same one, but I want to make sure. Okay, so this is a good one. The Polaris post. This is a two-parter here. I got to pop it up at 2 different times. He says, you are known for your charisma and connection with the audience. In today's wrestling landscape, with a focus on high-flying moves and spectacle, do you think the importance of character development and storytelling has diminished? How would you approach your character if you were debuting today?
I'd approach it the exact same way that I did, and it would be unique because there's nobody really, in that lane. I mean, Randy Orton is the closest embodiment of the way things were to me, from bringing old school and new school and very just very deliberate, well thought through actions as well as words that he communicates, and it never goes out of fashion because it's so credible, it's so believable. You don't have any problem relating to that person as being real and not something that's put on, and it brings people into whatever challenge it is you're looking at. I mean, when Randy rolled in the ring, and we thought he was going to punt Kevin Owens' head right off his shoulders. I mean, he made believers out of people in there. You felt like, I mean, you looked at this guy, he's almost 300 pounds. He's got, thighs big as, the state of Texas. And he looked like he could legitimately, take somebody out for good. And there's not a whole host of people that have that credibility today, the impact, hard hitting thing, and still are the bigger than life, characters, and have it all. So yeah, I would approach things, very, very, very similar. Maybe save the intensity for for that specific deal. But let me just say this, like, as well as I feel like Cody and John Cena's back and forth have been, and I think they've done an amazing job. I could not have portrayed it just like Cody's doing it, because you couldn't have done to me what was done to him, and me be standing 2 feet away from you with nothing between me but air, and me not being on top of you, with fists flying, and so that's the kind of difference, because they orchestrate things and lay things out and do things that are play well to the theater.
Magnum, you still there, or am I lost?
I'm here.
Oh, okay, cool.
Where are you?
Now I'm back here. I'm back. Yeah. Hold on, I'll put myself back. There we go.
You go. But talking about those feuds, if somebody had done something that dastardly to you, do you have to talk about it? 100%. Are you in somebody's space in their bubble, and you just gonna give them a tongue lashing? Magnum not. Yeah, I'm going to, I'm going to remind you of that potato I got in my ear from that guy, and everything else that transpired when they worked that angle.
Well, so let me ask you this then, because I think too, if I'm putting Magnum in the position of Cody, when he first has that interaction with Cena, which was in Brussels, so Cena's first heel promo, like, I could imagine you just kind of going and laying into Cena, like going back and forth. Then there's a pull apart that would supposedly happen or whatever they do. But it's just like, then you're off to the races. Then things are really heated up. Then you're like, oh my God, WrestleMania's right around the bend. I can't wait for these two to tear each other apart, so to speak. But how do you continue to keep that hot then week in and week out when you have television program to worry about? Do you think that's still something that's sustainable at that same point?
Then you tell the story. Then you give them the opportunity to be on split screens and things where they can't be in the same room.
Yeah.
You can't, and even, I look back on, certain elements of things and we did similar type things, but we had space. We tried to keep some space. Like we'd have somebody that would be up, way up with the announcers talking, and we might be on the other side of the arena in the ring, and might have a jousting match going on to some degree. But even at that point, at some point in time, it's got to be like it'd be if it's a shoot. I mean, if you're that ticked off at somebody, then there's going to be repercussions, and they're going to be quick.
Yeah, like I'm thinking too, like you think of all the awful things that The Rock, Cena, and Travis Scott did to Cody in that ring, and I'm like, damn, like you want to get a little bit of retribution. Now I think Cody does a great job, like as well spoken as he is, and kind of like keeping that cool demeanor about him. But to your point, like, does it fit your character? Does it fit who you are? And does it keep that story progressing a little bit at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
So, mm-hmm.
You're froze up on my screen. I don't know if you
can you still hear me though?
I can hear you. You're just froze.
Okay, as long as you can hear me, I don't care if I'm frozen or not.
Okay.
Hopefully, I'll kick back on. I don't know. My internet looks like it's still be on. Hard way. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Let's continue getting some questions in here. There's some good ones. How about this one? I know. Now he is a video viewing machine when Jim Cornette's name gets popped up. So why not? We'll read this one. Magnum, why does Jim Cornette hate a lot of the wrestlers in wrestling today? This is from CB.
Well, that's a big old question. If I could get inside the head of Jim Cornette, it'd probably scare me to death. Man, I love Jim. I mean, he's a brilliant guy, but he's to be brilliant in wrestling. I think you have to be borderline crazy a little bit along with, which means, I mean, you can't be lukewarm. You've got to be, you got to be passionate about the way you see something, the way you look at it. And I try to figure him out sometimes, because sometimes I don't know if he's doing or saying things just to be brash and be outspoken and and be what he's known for. But I mean, genuinely and for the most part, he's spot on about a lot of things, and some things that are just, you just shake your head and you can't figure out what the logic in anything is. There's no evidence of any psychology or any thought through, or what kind of picture they're really trying to paint. It's just like sporadic. It's like watching a one-act play that nobody knows what's going to supposed to happen next. So I think he's I think he puts out a lot of content, and if you put out a lot of content, you're going to be able to cover a lot of things, and it's probably a good thing that I don't talk more than once a week.
Well, I tell you what, Cornette, he's got 2 shows I did as a week, and each are like at least 3 hours, it seems. So he's got plenty of a podium to talk about. And, I'm with you. I agree with him on so many points when it comes to wrestling. Now, how sometimes that gets packaged, or sometimes his thoughts on certain aspects of it, like a little bit, or what he says, I'm like, holy smokes, Jim, that's a little much. But overall.
Well, let me ask you a question. Has he commented on the nail in the board gimmick with?
Oh, yes, he has. Now, I have not listened or heard the clip, but I definitely saw the YouTube thumbnail. And then I heard, I think it was feedback from a couple of my buddies in a group chat that was like, Jim Cornette clearly did not like the spike spot. So,
well, I tell you that God's honest truth. It makes me feel like there's somebody that's missing a chip somewhere, and I wouldn't let my kids the things that could lead to, and in today's society and all the crazy things that happen in this world, that was about the most irresponsible use of a platform I've ever seen.
listen, Magnum, I'm 100% with you. And like RVD and I talked about this too on his show. He brought it up and he was like, yeah, he's like, that is not my type of wrestling. He was like, and that's not how I was trained to do things like that. And like he got this feedback. And like I just posted the clip online. He got this feedback about like, well, you're an ECW, and then people would be sharing all these stuff about like flaming table spots, barbed wire, things like that. And then Rob was like, yeah, I wasn't a part of that stuff. I didn't do that kind of thing. And like a lot of the times I would have an RVD match, and he was like, but there'd be the aspects where I'm not going through a flaming table. I'm not taking like thumbtacks to the back. I'm not doing anything to that effect. And he even told me too that was only asked to be ever bladed. He only was requested to be bladed like twice in his, I think, never in his ECW career, but after the fact. So it's like anytime he got blood, it was because it was hardware. It worked hard way. And that just happened. So it's just like across the, I thought it was awful. Like, I love Moxley as a personality. I like his promos. I think he's great at it. I think he's been an awesome ambassador for AEW and such an MVP for AEW. But at the same turn, this kind of deathmatch stuff and constantly wanting to bleed and just, it takes away from an element that intrigues me about pro wrestling.
It does. And to be really transparent about it, ever since kayfabe was broke, all of that stuff just, to me, is just, it's just stupid.
Yeah.
It's like, when you were trying to convince people of this violence that we were depicting, and it was part of the craft, because I mean we're presenting something as a legitimate contest and a fight and a storytelling, live in the round and all the things that were happening. That's one thing. But now, we're telling everybody, okay, this nothing but entertainment. And oh, by the way, we had to go down and practice for 45 minutes to show you this little 7-minute thing that we're doing. And we got A, B, C, D, all the steps we're going to step through. And yeah, we're going to use this violent thing and this violent thing. And it's just an insult to everybody. I mean, there's things that we did back when that made sense at the time, because that was the era, the time, the credibility, and what it took. But the minute all that changed, then all of a sudden you become a bunch of masochists.
Right. Well, and the thing is too, there was an independent wrestler. I won't call him out. He doesn't wrestle anymore, but he made a tweet that said more people had matches with RVD and Jerry Lynn have harmed wrestling more than the John Moxley back spot has. And I was like, no, that's not the case at all. I'm thinking like Jerry Lynn and RVD were trained by wrestlers, like, then taught you the foundation of it all. Like, it's what the younger wrestlers would tune into. And RVD says this too, is like, people are so used to playing video games, what they see in video games. Yeah, what they see maybe RVD and Jerry Lynn do in the ring is something that they want to emulate, but they don't know the little details, the in-betweens, the amateur background that guys like you or Greg or, you name it, have had. And like, so to have a foundation, like, they don't piece that together. So for him to say something like RVD and Jerry Lynn matches have ruined wrestling more so than the aspect of that John Moxley spot is like, I thought it was just out of place for him to say something like that and just like really off base.
Well, you've got to consider the source.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody can sit back and have an opinion, but I'm not investing my family's time in being, part of watching that kind of entertainment. I'm just not doing it. As a matter of fact, unless they marketably make some drastic turnaround, it'll be a long time before I push that button again.
Yeah, it's frustrating. Like I watched AEW this past Wednesday, and I thought it was overall a really good show. And I thought they're piecing some things together. No back to the spikes or no blood going crazy or anything to that effect. But I mean, like that really, I don't really want to stand out differently from WWE, but there's different ways to do it. The funny thing is, to make this full circle too, is that I think Tony Khan has in recent weeks has said that he still listens to Cornette and like agrees with him on a lot of stuff, I think. And like it's just head scratching that doesn't get applied to the television products in a lot of ways.
No. So anyway, yeah. That Cornette comment made me think about all that. We went down that road.
That's it. Great. Good question though, CB. Cornette always gets clicked. I would love to have him on here. I've emailed him a couple times to try to in hopes to get him, but don't know about that. He's a very private person. His videos aren't videos; they're just audio with a screenshot over it. So, let's see. We'll take a couple more questions before we close this baby out. I want to make sure somebody had a good question. I want to make sure I covered. Here we go. Eddie Prather, regular on the show. Question for Magnum: is there any territory that you didn't work that you wish you had back in the day?
The only thing I wish I'd done was wrestle in Madison Square Garden.
Ooh, man.
That's
it, huh?
Yeah, we did the Meadowlands when we went up, and then we go into the city afterwards and everything, and it definitely had the New York flavor. But to have a whole career and wrestle in all the iconic buildings in Comiskey Park and all the really cool places, I had the pleasure to be able to perform. The Madison Square Garden, that was kind of a part and parcel to the whole package.
Did Dusty talk to you about him wrestling in Madison Square Garden?
Oh yeah, he talked to me about it a lot. Talked to me about him and Superstar and talking about Bob Dylan and Studio 54 and all. Just the whole life, the whole deal. Yeah.
Before I forget, let me ask you this, Magnum. With somebody, a big legend like George Foreman passing away, and I learned after the fact that he was a fan of pro wrestling. I didn't know until that. But is there anybody like outside of the business that you were pretty starstruck that you got to meet when you were in your heyday of pro wrestling?
I've never been one of those people that kind of you got starstruck, because I kind of looked at everybody. I really appreciate entertainers, whether they're musicians or actors or whatever they are, but it was just all like a craft to me, and so I didn't ever really have that moment. I guess had I got to meet Clint Eastwood maybe back in the day, that would have been maybe one of those moments, because he was one of my inspiring people back in my teens. But no, I didn't ever get that moment.
Oh man, yeah. Like I think of somebody like a Muhammad Ali. I think that's somebody I'd be like, whoa, about, or something like that. And seeing wrestlers like out of place. Like I saw Undertaker. When was it? Like, Ric Flair's last match behind the scenes, and I was like, well, it kind of took me back. I wasn't starstruck, but I was like, oh, there's the Undertaker. Okay, but it's just like making that kind of register it's an interesting thing, and I'm always kind of fascinated. I love it when big name celebrities, especially athletes, really like pro wrestling and stuff like that. And so I always think that's just such a neat thing that speaks to the genre itself of how over encompassing it is. So pretty cool. Yeah. RIP to George Foreman, man. What an athlete. And I've got the grill right over there. So
there you go.
There we go. Representing. Oh yeah. Magnum, did you hear about the Ric Flair Act? This proposed Ric Flair Act? Did you catch wind of this?
No.
Okay. I brought up the article just because. So it says Ric Flair Act proposes $500,000 for study into North Carolina Professional Wrestling Museum. A bipartisan group of state senators filed a bill on Monday proposing a study to explore a professional wrestling museum in North Carolina. Senate Bill 404, entitled An Act to Remember Iconic Combatants Through Fostering Learning Awareness and Interest in Wrestling with an R, is sponsored by State Senators Jay Caudry, Danny Britt, and Ralph Hayes. The bill is known as the Ric Flair Act, after Charlotte native regarded as the greatest professional wrestler of all time. The Ric Flair Act seeks $5,000 from the general fund to the Department of Natural Resources to study the feasibility of establishing a professional wrestling museum in North Carolina. If the bill becomes law, the department is scheduled to report its findings and recommendations to the Joint Legislative Oversight Committee on Agriculture and Natural Economic Resources on July 1st, 2026. The bill's sponsors are seeking to make the Ric Flair Act effective this July 1st. So there you go. So like they want to essentially basically, I guess, have a pro wrestling museum in North Carolina and call it the Ric Flair. I don't know. What do you think of that, Magnum? I know that.
No, I think they ought to send us all a pension.
That's it.
Yeah, that I can get behind that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's very cool. And they got the NASCAR Hall of Fame here in Charlotte, so to put a brick and mortar building together that was with that kind of financial backing and whatnot, that would be very cool.
That would be awesome. That'd be really awesome. I love I want to go. I really want to go to Waterloo this summer or something like that to check out the Dan Gable Museum that you and Greg are a part of.
That is a remarkable place. Yeah, I've been there twice, and you owe it to yourself to experience that at least once.
I'm envious. Marcus got to go last year, my brother Marcus, and so I want to check it out and experience all that. So hopefully this year I can do that. Cool. Let's see if I want to cover anything else. I know I started a few things here. Oh, okay. You clearly know this question, and I looked up a little bit, but Charlie asked question, Magnum, I know you held the U.S. title multiple times in Jim Crockett. Did you hold any other championship with JCP? Thank you, gentlemen, in advance. Did you do something? I saw a cage match that you did something early in your career with NWA, but I don't know if that ties into it.
No, not the only title I held at the Crockett organization was a U.S. title. I was the first one to have the new belt. I won the old silver belt from Wahoo, and then when they created the new gold and colorful one, I was the first one to hold that.
Oh, okay. So what I see here on Cage Match, this is through NWA, but this is you were the Florida Global Tag Team Champions with Armstrong, Scott McGee. Then you were Trios Champions, I guess.
Yeah, that was and that wasn't the Crockett's. I mean, that was NWA. That was my first title.
Yeah,
and, I held those. Yeah, we were the global. That's beyond the world. We were global.
You were global, guys.
Yeah, we were the global champions, and I had a good run with that with Scott McGee and Brad Armstrong both.
Do you think? How did you like being in a tag team? Did you like that overall, or were you just single wrestling match focused?
It was good. It was good from a learning perspective. I preferred single matches as I learned the craft, but the tag matches were a great way to learn, especially when you're out there with more experienced people and having 4 guys to learn from as opposed to just one. It adds a whole nother dimension to what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. It enhances it. Like, it gives you more tools in the toolbox, so to speak.
Oh, it does, and it's psychology and Scotty and I worked so many matches with the Royal Kangaroos down there in Florida, and we do 30 and 45-minute Broadways every night. And Dusty just had me out there with these guys that were just teaching me. I was on a crash course, learning and psychology and selling and coming back and just milking the tags and all the things that we did. It was it's, to me, I can't imagine having to learn the craft the way they do today. And I also can't imagine not being able to feel the spontaneity of being able to improvise.
Oh,
That would be heartbreaking, to me, just personally.
yeah. And I see it too. It's like when I'm at independent shows or where it be, I see a lot of guys like rehearsing what they're gonna go throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's
And I see some of these young kids say, well, you old guys, you guys couldn't remember all this. I said, you know what? You're absolutely right. But I could go entertain people for an hour, and I didn't have to think about it for 5 minutes before I went out.
That's exactly it. And you know what? The funny thing is, Magnum, is like, theater kind of has that same kind of parallel connection to it because, like, I'm great at memorizing lines and delivering lines, but what freaks me out most is improv. Like, if I have to improv things, I'm like, that's another animal that I'm not used to. And like, I think that is more of an impressive of an art than me keeping track of lines and knowing what I'm saying and rehearsing them. So there we go. All right. I think that'll do. I will say to go back to Randy Orton, it's so fascinating when you hear about Randy Orton because so often, and even in Terry Funk's book, people always use Randy Orton. Like the veterans always use Randy Orton as like the keystone for modern wrestling and who reminds them the most of the business of old kind of thing. It's pretty cool to see Randy Orton just doing what he's doing, and he's just really great at what he does. So
yes, yes, and yes. There's no. I mean, when you go back, you had to go back to guys like JBL, and I mean, just nobody can just wrap their head around what it was like living in the land of the giants when everybody was when you're 6'2" and 240 and you look like you're a little guy to everybody that watches you perform because you're out there with guys that are 6'6", 6'8", 6'9", and 300 pounds. They don't realize what that was all like. And in today's world, because the guys are, completely different frame, stature, everything, and they're doing all these things. But when you see them in person, it doesn't have that same impact, as it does of seeing a Roman Reigns or a Drew McIntyre or a Randy Orton, and people that are bigger than life and have an aura about them to go with all that. That's what that's what made the biz so crazy. I mean, have these guys today, as talented as they might be, could put on a sweatshirt and a ball hat and walk through, a crowded mall and never turn a head because they look like everybody else.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you think about it, it's like, Randy Orton, he's somebody back in the early days of like the ruthless aggression era, like the early 2000s. He wasn't small, but he looked like he was trying to get into his own physical features almost like you're comparing him up against a Triple H or a Batista or
Next to Batista,
right?
who's 320,
Right.
So,
And now you see Randy Orton, he's one of the big dudes, and he's like, he is bigger than a lot of the talent that's on television nowadays. People that can kind of like Cody still looks like a star. I've seen him in person and stuff like that. I think the way he presents himself, he looks like a star. CM Punk is like kind of the anomaly exception to that all because he was almost like a early pioneer of like that smaller stature guy that still has that kind of presence, that star presence to him. But yeah, I just think it's really cool that everybody goes back, and it's like I don't prompt it, I read it, and then I hear people say it. Randy Orton's like the standard bearer for veteran wrestlers as their favorites, so it's pretty cool. I bet he appreciates that to the hell and back, So pretty cool.
Yeah,
right.
he's paid his dues.
He definitely has paid his dues. All right, Magnum, is there anything you want to plug regarding Power Town or anything like that?
Just that look forward to some big announcements coming here in the spring, and I'm looking forward to an exciting summer.
Yeah, Yeah, you guys got some good stuff lined up. It's and I tell you what, the quality of work. Like I said, I saw that Stan Hansen figure at the Bruno Forever show. Looks great. I got the Bruiser Brody back here. I got the Kerry Von Erich back here. So you guys do some fantastic work. Be sure to go to PowertownWrestling.com, bookmark it, and keep tabs on what could be coming up and coming forward with all that stuff. So if you guys are interested, go to 1tsport.com. You can get some Magnum TA merch, some good Magnum TA merch. I got some other good stuff cooking. I still want to make Magnum a NASCAR t-shirt. We got the what is it called? The man of the not the man of the hour. What's it called? The beer drinking thing, Magnum, that you guys did?
Oh, you're talking about the leader of the pack.
Leader of the pack. I got to make a leader of the pack shirt. That's on my agenda too. So we got to get stuff like that. I have a good idea for Magnum too. I haven't even told him about another idea that I want to use. And then, yes, we got Greg Gagne merch up there too. So go to 1tsport.com and scoop up some teas, help out, support the show, and get some stuff cooking here. Far as anything else goes, I think that does it for me. And Magnum, this has been a good show. We miss Greg. It'll be nice to have him back at some point here. But hey, it's always good shooting the shiz with the boss himself. So I appreciate it, Magnum.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Dom.
Thanks, man. All right, guys. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Eddie, Charlie, Triple E, CB, all the regulars chiming in. Really appreciate everybody's love and appreciation. So we'll see you next time here on Straight Talk with who? Magnum TA. He's the boss, baby. Watch out.